So fast forward to 2005, Tarja has been dismissed from the band by the rest of the band collectively, but particularly by Thomas, who is like the mastermind of Nightwish, the main composer and lyricist. And then we have a long period of not really much happening with Nightwish. And we know now that Thomas was going through a really tough time processing the loss of the vocalist in the band, but also someone who'd been his friend. The friendship ended then. And I remember them being on a really long kind of search for the next vocalist. And I remember Elise Reed from Amaranth applied for that. And in the end, it was Annette Olsson from Sweden who got the job. And I remember at the time that she was announced as being a former ABBA tribute band singer. And I thought, wow, how's this going to fit? Thomas had put together the Dark Passion Play album. And everybody was waiting. And this was the first track on the album. And, the message behind this song, it's basically this kind of period of mourning for the loss of Tarja and the relationship with her and the friendship. And, there's a lot of speculation about much of this. But, the lyrics, trigger warning, the lyrics get pretty dark. A lot of death mentioned in there. And, just as a kind of one point of reference, the title, The Poets in the Pendulum, is based, of course, on Edgar Allan Poe's Pit in the Pendulum. And, it's that kind of this horror story of death awaiting and, it's death and torture and all these kind of things. So we'll see references to that in the lyrics. And I have the lyrics here in front of me in a window. I prepared those so that I can look at those in a bit more detail as we go along. And here we have the official version from Nightwish's website, which is in Wembley, with Floor on vocals. This is The Poets in the Pendulum by Nightwish with Floor on vocals at Wembley. Let's do this. And we know it's going to get louder here. So let's talk about that for a second. Already the atmosphere that's being built there. Poof. And just imagine being that audience while that's happening. That voice is so piercing. And what I like about it is you can hear what's being sung. And really clearly as well. What I like as well, this has been mentioned frequently, that the song begins with the end and ends with the beginning. So, looking at the lyrics, the songwriter's dead, the blade fell upon him, and the blade is referring to this blade in the pit in the pendulum, of course, kind of coming down towards, in this case, the songwriter. So it's a real reference back to that. Taking him to the white lands of Empathica. Now, I didn't know what this was. I had to look that up myself back in the day, and apparently it refers to a Stephen King story. Some place almost kind of like an afterlife where it's covered in snow and everybody is naturally able to display empathy for each other, something that's really missing a lot in society. And you notice this now more and more, that empathy is something we need to work on more. And yeah, that's something that he seems to be yearning for as well. So Empathica, innocence, That's the first part of the song, The White Lands of Empathica. So that's the introduction. You can see also here on YouTube, it's kind of split up into the different segments of the song, which is really helpful for us. So that was part one. Let's jump into part two, which is called Home. And just as we see Floor coming out to sing, I've got to stop again, because I just have to. The build-up there. So first we've got this really dominant bass drum of Kai going through this at the beginning, while we have the keyboard parts coming in and, you know, the stoppers on the drums with the bass and the guitar. And then we get into kind of more the full band arrangement and the rhythm, and that, you know, that pendulum there swinging in the visuals. The visuals on this tour are just next level, because of course it is, it's Nightwish. And then we get into that really, really kind of extended, you know, double bass, fantastic. And Nightwish are great at this, building up an introduction before you've even heard any vocals, you know, part for part, adding more layers to what you're hearing there. Just going from, you know, from eighths to sixteenths on the bass drum, for example. Love it. And we've not even heard Floor sing yet. We're 2 minutes in, and it's time to hear some vocals. Let's do it. We will get into this chorus in a minute. We will. But because we're reviewing this, we've got to go step by step, right? That verse for a start. I've seen a couple of reactors react to this before I got into reviewing myself. And the first thing that usually shocks reactors about this, you've got that really heavy introduction to the song, and then suddenly you have this quite relaxed, neutrally sung vocal part in the verse, almost poppy. And I say that for a reason, because when Annette joined the band, she was a pop singer. She was an ABBA tribute cover artist, used to singing pop music. And you can tell already that the vocal lines here fit that style of singing really well. Now, I know that it wasn't necessarily written for Annette specifically to sing like that, because there's a demo of this sung by Marco originally. And I have to admit, whenever I hear a demo that was sung by Marco originally, I love it. And I often wonder, you know, when Tarja left, whether Marco couldn't have just been the vocalist of Nightwish. Because everything that I've heard from Amaranth to this, it sounds fantastic with Marco. And, you know, I say that especially now when we know that, you know, we've very sadly not got Marco in the band anymore. But yeah, the melody is really poppy. And also, you know, we'll go back and listen to it in a second, but the melodic bridge between the verse and the chorus, if you just listen to the style in which it's sung, it's something that Annette does a lot as well, that Floor's doing here too. These little pop trills at the end of phrases, and fits really, really well with this metal song. Why wouldn't it? Thomas just has an ear for it, right? Let's carry on. Let's just go back and listen to that transition again. I love that chorus. Enough said. I love that chorus, really. The harmonies between Marco and Flor there are just astounding. Love them. And this is one of those reasons why I'm going to so miss Marco. I can't imagine anyone else standing on that stage, playing bass and singing, whose voice gels so well with Flor's. I know that Troy can sing, and I know that he can provide some great harmonies for Flor. I just cannot imagine Troy singing with that kind of rock pressure and intensity that Marco does. He's just got a far different tone to his voice. And I like Troy's voice, you know, Harvest. I love Harvest, and I know a lot of people don't, but I really do. I genuinely love going out for a walk and listening to Harvest. But I'm going to miss Marco on this. I hope they still perform it, but I'm going to miss Marco on this. I really am. Let's talk about lyrics. You know, in the verse we have the reference again, you know, the dreamer and the wine poet without a rhyme. And I guess this might refer to the state that Thomas was in after Tarja left, because when they dismissed Tarja, he wrote, "I can't think of any songs to write for you anymore." And that was one of the reasons that they dismissed her. A widowed writer. That's a really interesting metaphor. You know, widowed usually refers to marriage. And there's been suggestions that Thomas had feelings for Tarja beyond friendship and musicianship. I don't know about that, but there's suggestions about it. And this word widowed perhaps supports that suggestion a little bit. Torn apart by chains of hell. Wow. And I want to jump into the chorus here. You know, get away, run away, fly away. This repetition of away. Lead me astray to dreamers hideaway. I don't know whether that's some reference that I don't know about, but dreamers hideaway, you know, being somewhere safe in a dream, I guess. The next line, I cannot cry because the shoulder cries more. Wow. That is, you know, I've thought about this a lot, you know. I guess we've all been in that situation where we've needed somebody and we've been afraid to approach them and say that we need them because they have their own stuff to deal with. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you've got friends, good friends, and you're having a tough time and you want to approach that friend and get their support, but you can't do that. You don't feel able to because they have maybe even worse things going on in their lives that they can't support you. And I wonder whether this is something like with Thomas and Tarja, that he didn't feel he could count on her anymore. You know, she was the shoulder previously for him, and she wasn't going to be there for him. But yeah, that line, wow. And then I cannot die, a whore for the cold world. Which means almost that he kind of comes back to it, you know, that he comes back to this coldness and this, this lack of empathy and this lack of closeness with somebody. Okay, let's carry on. Yeah, we're going to jump in there for a second because I want to talk about how cool it is watching Empu go across the whole stage. And you've not seen much of that in this video yet because there's been a lot of close-ups, but Empu's usually everywhere. Empu genuinely is one of my favorite guitarists ever. And that's saying something because I know a lot of guitarists. And he's one of my favorites because, firstly, he is so good at guitar. Something that doesn't necessarily always become as apparent as it could because there's so much happening in Nightwish songs. And occasionally, you know, you're just drawn to what he's doing and it's just, yeah, fantastic. And he's a wonderful showman. The interaction with the audience from this guy and, you know, from throwing the picks into the audience to just kind of interacting with him when he's not playing. A bit of kind of flamboyant guitar playing as well that gets their attention. He's just one of my favorite guitarists in general, at all. And I do enjoy seeing him run over to Thomas with a beer and just having a chat during the verses when he's not playing. I always wonder what they're talking about and whether they can actually even hear each other with all that monitoring and the noise that's going on. I really wonder whether they're actually talking to each other or just making it look that way, because when I've got any monitors in, I can't hear a thing that anybody's saying to me. But yeah, if we look at the lyrics here, you know, my home was there and then, those meadows of heaven, adventure-filled days, one with every smiling face, so kind of harking back to the past. And this is a cool strategy in lyric writing where, you know, in the first verse, for example, you're in the present time looking at the problem, and in the second verse, you're going back in time, you're doing like a flashback to happier times. And, you know, that can be the other way around as well, but just kind of from verse to verse, looking at a different angle. So really cool. And then we go into this Please No More Words. And I always I remember the first time I heard this song thinking, wait a second, did she just sing Severed Head? And of course she did, because, you know, Thomas wrote this, and it's, we know it's sad. We know it's about a really sad situation. Yeah, thoughts from a severed head. Think about that, you know, how can a severed head think? Only if it's Thomas's, right? So, yeah, tell me once my heart goes right. Okay. Let's go back into this next chorus. It's almost like, in a place like that in a song, you've got to stop and just see where Empu is. It's almost like Empu's looking up going, where have I landed now? Because he's everywhere. And I love it. So I want to go back to the chorus and just look at a line I forgot to mention because it's in the second half of the chorus earlier on. Forgive me, I have but two faces, one for the world and one for God. Save me. God's an important reference in this song. There'll be more than one time when, you know, the idea of God is referred to here. I mean, we've already got the idea of the afterlife from the very beginning of the song, but right now, you know, it's this kind of plea to God to save him. And yeah, I mean, look at that. Forgive me, I have but two faces, one for the world, so one for kind of the outside appearance that I'm pushing forward. Maybe it's this outside kind of image that I'm okay, I'm figuring it out, I'm putting the band back together, I'm writing new songs now, look, it's okay. And the other one for God, kind of saying, save me from this, because I don't know what I'm doing, I'm overwhelmed, I'm mourning this kind of loss personally, and I don't know what to do with myself. I can imagine that really well from those lyrics. Okay, we're coming to the end of this second part, and we're moving now from home into the next part called the Pacific. So here we go. I hate to interrupt this part. I really do. Hits you right there. As soon as I hear that cello, I think it's a cello. It's certainly low enough to be a cello. It may even be a double bass, I'm not sure, but it sounds like a cello to me. I'm not an orchestra musician, but in my head that sounds like a cello. Those vocals. Flor just has something in her voice that hits me. And it's not just on this song, it's on quite a few others. I remember watching her sing in Beste Zangers in the Netherlands, covering other people's songs, and there was a song there called Winner that she sang for one of the other people on the show whose brother had a disability, and the song was written for the brother, kind of saying, you know, who cares? You're amazing, just as you are. And I remember the empathy in how she sang that was so strong that it really got me, really hard. And it's exactly the same here. Like, there's real empathy in her singing. And that for me is what makes Flor so perfect for Nightwish. The empathy in parts of songs like these, where she's, you know, expressing and encapsulating what's being written in the lyrics, and she's feeling it, and she's making us feel it too. That's one thing that I think a true amazing vocalist can do, just make you feel. And yeah, right there. Lyrics. I don't want to forget my lyrics. We have these references back to childhood and to times that were better and to happiness, you know, turquoise waterfalls, beauty underneath, the ever free, tuck me into, you know, he's kind of longing for this connection in beneath the blue. This blue could be a number of things, right? It could be these kind of the waterfalls, you know, the turquoise waterfall, but it could also be sadness. The blue, you know, as in sad. Beneath the pain, which would support the latter, and beneath the rain. Goodnight kiss for a child in time, and this child theme is so common in Thomas's lyrics. I've talked about this before in Dead Boy's poem, how the child is such a common point of reference for him in his lyrics, and there's plenty of other songs where that happens. You know, Bless the Child, which is a song that I keep meaning to look at and haven't done yet. But even also now in Harvest, you know, Offer Light to the Coming Day, Inspire a Child. So this theme of childhood and innocence is really important to Thomas, and it keeps coming back in his lyrics. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah, the swaying blade, my lullaby. Of course, we have this blade again. You know, it's in the forefront of our minds still, or perhaps it was in the back of our minds and it's now in the forefront. I've said enough. Let's carry on. It's going to get more dramatic here. Spoiler alert. I love this part. I really do. I love the melody the whole time from the cello to the vocals. And just in case anyone didn't notice, you know, she sang this really high octave first in this neutral register, and now she's dropped an octave. And doesn't that sound beautiful? That low octave from her. You know, we know she can sing high and she can sing with great variety there, but that drop of an octave into that lower neutral register, I just really like that. You know, on the shore we sat and hoped under the same pale moon, whose guiding light chose you all. I wonder if he's singing to the whole band there, you know, chose you all. About how he's feeling about the whole band right now and whether he can keep it together. Yeah. Okay. Let's go into the drama part. It's going to get intense. Trigger warning, folks. Reference to bad things. I'll give you 3 seconds to hit mute if you don't want reference to very disturbing bad things. Here we go.
I'm afraid, so afraid, being raped again and again and again. I know I will die alone, but loved. You live long enough to hear the sound of guns,
Okay, we're moving into part 4, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, horror movie vibes, right? Real horror vibes. And, I mean, you saw the closed captions there on the screen, I guess, and the lyrics, obviously really disturbing stuff. And one thing that I want to mention here is that there was actually originally, when Marco sang the demo, an alternative set of lyrics at this point. The rest of the lyrics up to this point were the same. But here, the lyrics were actually even more disturbing. And it ended up with them toning it down before Annette sang it. So I don't know whether that was Annette's request or whether Thomas had reconsidered at that point, you know, how harsh he wanted to be in his lyrics. But you can check out online the lyrics for the alternative version with Marco. But I mean, this is bad enough, right? This is really scary stuff. I won't say too much about it yet, but the last part of that spoken word part, now I only have 3 minutes and counting. And before that, you know, for years I've been strapped onto this altar. And in the version with Mark, I remember it saying for 11 years I've been strapped onto this altar. So this altar was like the situation, I guess, with Taria. And now I only have 3 minutes and counting, is this countdown to death, of course, in the song. And all I'm going to say is that that countdown of 3 minutes is relevant and it's important. If you don't know the song already, I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you do know the song, you know what I'm talking about. So we'll get there. Okay, we're going to get into part 4, and part 4 is called Dark Passion Play. That's important because it's the title of the album that it comes from. Here we go. I know I'm pausing again already, but there was something I wanted to mention from before that I totally forgot about. And that was in that part before with the spoken word part where it was all very busy and horror-like. A lot of it was backing track. What's really striking to me, though, is at that point, while these really disturbing lyrics are coming, Thomas is the only person on the stage playing. He's playing those string parts on his keyboard, and he's the person who's really affected by this. You know, he's the person whose message is coming out in this song. And it's really telling to me that he's the only person on the stage playing an instrument at that point, and the rest is backing track. So it's really from him. So that was just one interpretation I wanted to mention as well. And the skill of this guy on the keyboards, you know, we talk about his songwriting so much, but I just want to mention, I mean, I'm a keyboard player as well. And growing up, my biggest inspiration on the keyboard, weirdly, well, not weirdly, there were two people. There was John Lord from Deep Purple, and there was David Bryan from Bon Jovi, a really underrated keyboardist and piano player. And those two guys were my main influences in becoming a keyboardist. And then along came Thomas, and that just changed my world. So as a keyboardist, I just want to say, you know, this guy, the dexterity in his fingers, his sense of timing, he's just a fantastic musician, as well as being this unbelievable composer and lyricist. Had to say that before I forgot. So let's get back into this. Before Floor comes back in, we got to talk about that part, right? Marco, what am I going to do without you? Who's going to do that bit? Yeah. Let's talk about lyrics. Second robber to the right of Christ. Wow. Straight in there, we get this biblical reference. And I said, God and the Bible would be important later, and here it is. The second robber to the right of Christ, of course, there were two robbers on the three crosses together with Christ. And one of them was kind of mocking Jesus, kind of saying, you thought you were the savior, look at you now, that kind of thing. And the other one was saying, hey, leave him alone, he's done nothing wrong. I believe in you, And that seems to be what he's talking about. The second robber who believed and is pleading to go into the afterlife now. The world will rejoice today as the crows feast on the rotting poet. And this, this is frequently referred to as being a discussion of the press, but also just the people that wanted Thomas to fail after Tarja left. There were a lot of fans that were so angry with Thomas and the band for firing her. And he was worried about how the fans saw him. Yeah, again, heavy stuff. Really heavy stuff. Okay, let's carry on. We'll never get finished otherwise. Let's carry on. Before we get into this bit, because in a minute, spoiler alert, something is going to happen in a minute that's going to blow your mind if you don't know about it already. So we're going to talk about this bit first. We get back into this. Well, firstly, we have this kind of little bridge. The morning dawned upon his altar, remains of the dark passion play, performed by his friends without shame, spitting on his grave as they came. Wow. Just when you think the lyrics aren't heavy enough, and then that comes. Then we get back into this chorus that we haven't heard for a good, it's 9 minutes into the song now. We haven't heard them for 5 minutes or so. And we're back into this fantastic chorus, which I really, really love. And one little change at the end of that chorus, just one tiny change. In the first chorus, this line, I cannot die, I a whore for the cold world, it just appears once. In the second chorus, it appears 3 times. And in this last chorus, it appears 3 times again, but the emphasis in the rhythm of the last line has changed. Originally, it was, a whore for the cold world, whore for the cold world, whore for the cold world. And now we have whore for the cold world, whore for the cold world. Just that emphasis, that extra bit of anger. Let's move on to the next bit, because this is the bit that's going to blow your mind if you don't know the song already.
Today, in the year of our Lord, 2005, Thomas was called from the cares of the world. He stopped crying at the end of each beautiful day. The music he wrote had too long been without silence. He was found naked and dead, with a smile on his face, a pen, and 1,000 pages of erased text.
We're not done quite yet. There's still part 5, but we're going to finish talking about part 4. So you heard all the drama, you heard all the choirs in the background, you heard the rhythmic parts on the keyboards, and you heard the spoken word part. And, most of you in the room don't need me to break this down for you. We have the spoken part, today in the year of our Lord 2005, which is the year in which Tarja was dismissed from the band. Thomas was called from the cares of the world. Stop crying at the end of each beautiful day. The music you wrote had too long been without silence. That's interesting. Found naked and dead with a smile on his face, a pen and 1,000 of pages of erased text. Sounds almost like he's found peace with this ending. But the death reference is, of course, really disturbing in that it makes it sound like he feels like this is a kind of death to him in the separation between Nightwish and Tarja. but a smile on his face, a pen, and 1,000 pages of erased text. Is almost like, everything's blown up. Now the bit that's going to blow your mind. I'm going to take you back, and if you didn't see it before, you'll see it now.
Today, with a smile on his face, a pen, and 1,000 pages of erased text.
Did you see that hand movement right there? That was, of course, the pendulum coming down, and the blade, and the death. Which in itself, fits in with what we were expecting. But on top of that, it's exactly 3 minutes, and I mean exactly 3 minutes, no second difference to the part 3 minutes ago in the song when he said, I only have 3 minutes. And counting. And those 3 minutes are up, and you see the hand movement from Thomas. That's the death. That's the blade. So, I mean, impeccable composition. To set that up, to have that level of skill as a songwriter and a composer. And not just a composer, a composer who's got an entire orchestra in this song. I talked about this with Ghost Love Score as well. He's got a whole orchestra in that track, with brass and with woodwinds and with strings, everything. He's arranged this composition, and he's arranged the entire section of the song around this timer of 3 minutes. It'd be really interesting to know which way around that was, whether, this was set up and then he went back and put in the line of the 3 minutes earlier on. The skill it takes as a songwriter and the dedication to your craft to come up with something like that, that's just not something you see every day, and it's not something you see even semi-regularly. Like, that is a songwriter right there. Unbelievable. So we come to the final part. We come to Mother and Father. And I believe this is kind of some reference to the afterlife as well. Let's have a look. There we go. Wow. So a couple of things we can talk about there. Firstly, the lyrics, and I see in the chat, you know, it's a reference to his parents when he returned home after all that had been happening. And yeah, there's also some idea of this home being the afterlife after his life has been taken in the earlier parts of the song, that, you know, this has been transposed basically into that situation of being the afterlife and God speaking to him. God being mother and father in the Bible, right? So there's ideas that might be the case too. And what's really interesting is this pair of lines: the blade will keep on descending, all you need is to feel my love, which is also reminiscent of the relationship between God and Jesus, basically, before Jesus is taken from the world. Then we have this last part: search for beauty, find your shore, try to save them all, bleed no more. You have such oceans within. Love that. You have such oceans within, you know, there's so much more in you that you haven't discovered yet, as wide as the ocean. And in the end, I will always love you. And then we just have the beginning at the very end. So it's all back to front, you know, the beginning's at the end and the end's at the beginning. He's such an amazing storyteller. And through Floor and Marco and the rest of the band, you know, he's got this perfect vehicle of expressing this story. Yeah. Emotionally, that's draining, you know, it's so draining for him. And, you know, I see in the chat, yeah, where Empu and Marco are standing, you know, at the end of the song, they're standing around Thomas at the keyboard. And, you know, they know what the song means to him. They know how emotionally hard it is for him. There was a while when he felt he couldn't play it at all. And, yeah, you know, this is like the solidarity between the guys on the stage, that they make their way over to him to show support. You know, there's a lot of empathy in this band. So, yeah. So much going on there. I hope I've covered everything I needed to cover. I can't remember whether there's anything I've forgotten, but this being a live review, I'm going to assume that I've covered all I realistically can with that.